Almost immediately after suffering a defeat over health care, the Trump administration is pivoting to tax reform. The president meeting Thursday with his closest economic advisors to make a strategy, which included Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and National Economic Council Director Gary Cohn.
You know, but are the Republicans going to work together on this? Are they going to be able to when it comes to tax reform? They didn't have so much success when it came to health reform. And what would a bill actually look like that could get through both the House and the Senate? Our next two guests are the two most sought-after names on Capitol Hill when it comes to tax policy. We have Forbes media chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes magazine, Steve Forbes. He's here, along with Americans for Tax Reform President Grover Norquist. Good to see both you guys. I'll start with you, Steve. This has been your platform, as well as Grover's platform, for some time. You want to see tax reform. People are saying there's a real shot it could get through. But in light of the lack of savings that they were anticipating from health care reform, can it still be done?
It can be done. One of the things the Republicans have to do in Congress is stop worshiping the Congressional Budget Office, which scores these tax cuts. They've been about as reliable as your daily horoscope. They should just chuck it aside, go for a sweeping tax cut, rates across the board, do all the things they want to do on the corporate side, say the heck with the CBO, get it passed, and then make it retroactive to January 1st. That way, people see right away their paychecks are getting better, and you set the stage for investment, which they need next year.
All right. That said, you know, Grover, we've got some responsibility here for future generations, right? And the concern is the debt is already bad enough, and we've got to start to enforce some kind of fiscal responsibility. So, you know, to Steve's point, if you cut taxes, you're going to help grow the economy, and that's all good. But are you going to be able to do so fast enough that you're going to be able to offset some of these other burdensome expenses we're dealing with?
But the answer is if we have significant tax reduction, and again, there's already an agreement between Trump and the Republicans in the House. They're going to take the corporate rate from 35 to 20 for business pass-throughs, partnerships and so on, subchapter S corporations, from 44 down to 25. These are dramatic reductions in taxes on business, full business expensing, a territorial tax system. On the individual side, death tax permanently gone, AMT permanently gone. And the reason why we're having this discussion about whether it can all fit inside the CBO numbers is because if they do, then the tax cuts can be permanent. If they don't, if you have a more dramatic tax cut and no offsets either through more growth or other tax changes, then in 10 years, like with President Bush, the pumpkin appears and Cinderella's coach is gone. I mean, the whole thing disappears. Can businesses plan if they don't know that they have permanency? So that's one of the tensions, permanent or bigger but not permanent.
You know, Steve, everybody wants lower taxes. So whether you vote Republican or you vote Democratic, you're watching this show, you want lower taxes. So when you think about repatriation, that seems to be the one, to me, that is the easiest to get consensus on. So should they be starting with a repatriation holiday? And then how do you make certain, we've had a lot of guests come on the show, say they're in favor, but they want to make certain that companies will put that money back into the business. How do you make that work functionally?
Well, in terms of the permanence in business planning, no tax cut is permanent. We saw that in the mid-1980s. They cut the top rate from 50 to 28. 4 years later, the new president, George H.W. Bush, was increasing taxes, even though that was supposed to be permanent. And on repatriation, that's exactly a good thing because it pays off right away. I don't care what they do with the money. If they pay it out in dividends, good. If they invest it, good. If they do something else with it. Money doesn't stay idle. It doesn't go under a mattress.
Buybacks okay, too?
What?
Buybacks okay, too.
Buybacks are fine, but if you have the right environment, that money will be invested. So lowering the rate from 35% on the corporate side to 15%, instant expensing of capital expenses, I guarantee you're going to see that money invested.
So that repatriation, that would, when you look at it and you say, forget the Congressional Budget Office, when you bring that money back, what is the impact to GDP?
It's instant because you start to have the investment. And that means also the stock market will actually be helped again. The stock market, as we know, went up in anticipation of good things. These good things will come. And the other thing they should push for is a real cut in the capital gains tax, because we know from experience that instantly means more revenue.
So
those are two no-brainers.
Should they have started with this, Steve? I mean, was health care a big mistake to start with in the first place?
It was a huge mistake, Trish. Absolutely. And they have convoluted reasons why they had to do it. It's nonsense. nonsense. It's this worshiping of the CBO. What they should have done is go with the big tax cut first, get that win, then they could tackle health care.
You know, Grover, do you think the fact that they went for health care first is going to have a long-term impact on this tax reform?
If we don't pass the health care bill is a trillion-dollar tax cut, $1 trillion, much of that on savings and investment income. Getting rid of that is a very pro-growth tax cut. But if you don't get rid of that and you leave it there, it's a $1 trillion tax cut. It's more than $1 trillion in spending. It's beginning to reform the Medicaid entitlement program. It's very important. It's very disappointing that a handful of Republicans have decided they don't want to vote for a $1 trillion tax cut and they don't want to reform Medicaid because something. And as a result, we're now in a difficult position that when we go and pivot to tax reform, we're $1 trillion short in getting this stuff done. I think we will double back, fix the first problem because it's too important, and then go to dramatic
they've
lower
said
rates.
It's not going anywhere. That they're gonna try and work on this.
Yeah.
And of course, we've watched Donald Trump call out members of the Freedom Caucus, saying, "Look, you know, you guys got to be able to work with me, or else." Do you think he's going to bring them around? Do you think the threat of 2018 and possibly not getting reelected because their constituents get so angry that nothing got done will work, Grover?
The challenge for the Freedom Caucus people is they didn't just disappoint every business person in the state by delaying and maybe killing the hopes of getting tax reform by this delay. They've also trained, they said 25 of us can get together and defeat anything the Republicans want, because the Ds will all vote no, too. You know what they're teaching? They're teaching the appropriators to do the same thing. They're teaching the moderates to do the same thing. They are badly damaging our ability to function as a party for tax cuts and spending cuts, and we will be paying for what they did for years to come unless it gets fixed soon. They're teaching spenders they can beat tax cuts.
Wow.
Bad thing to do.